Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Seenaa Jimjimo. She is a writer and activist, and she is well known for advocating the cause of Oromo. And recently, she published a book called Na-Malee. And I will say thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree, Ms. Seenaa.
Thank you so much, Alpha. Really pleased to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. Yeah, you pronounce it very well, my name as well as the title, which is an Oromo word, so it's kind of complex, but yes.
Thank you. So we'll go directly to the subject. I know you wrote a book, and my first question will be, who are the Oromo people?
Yeah. That is such a interesting question, Alpha. And the reason why it's interesting, Africa is, maybe even the world, pre-colonization is based on ethnic and tribe line. You know what I'm saying? That is how you maintain marriage, have family, and that's how you rebel or repel against the enemies, the invaders, whomever they might be, from far and close. So, and I say it's complex because a lot of people never heard of the word Oromo. In fact, until, when I started advocacy on Oromo people, I'm like, what is that? It's like, but Oromo makes at least the top three ethnic group in the continent, not in the Horn of Africa, in the continent of Africa, my brother. They are more than half of Ethiopian population, over 130, 140 million. They make over half. So you do the maths, half of 130, 100, 20, whatever. It's about 60, 70 million. They are minority, big number minority in the Kenya, but you can also trace them back several tribe in Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and part of DRC. So you find the Oromos from all these places, and obviously they assimilated, but obviously they do trace back through certain ways. They do trace back to the Oromo, and I've the Oromo cause, as you know, my brother, you and I know each other for a very long time, have been the cause that I've been advocating all my life. I guess as long as I know myself since I was a kid, the issue of Oromo and women have been always something near and dear to my heart.
I see. But what differentiates the Oromo from other ethnic group when you come to Ethiopia? Because we often know people based on their nationalities, and when you come to Ethiopia, we say they are the Ethiopians. But what differentiate you from other ethnies um, inside Ethiopia?
Alpha, if you remember, I think was it last year, you and I, after sometimes uh, got reconnected. I called you, I believe I called you. I'm like, hey, Alpha, what you been up to? And you asked me about my struggle. I'm like, man, I'm changed. And in fact, this book, big part of it, because this is my second book. I wrote about 10, 11 years ago, I wrote another book called The In-Between. The in-between is the struggle between the in-between. You live here in diaspora and you have an accent, so, like, oh, that's cute. Some people find it cute, like, where are you from? And then you go back home, oh, like, oh, you have an accent. Oh, you are diaspora. So it's like you are just the in-between. You never fit anywhere in
Mm.
life, whether it's through ethnic or country, culture, religion, the in-between, like the people that got stuck on the air. Like that's what I call that was the name of my first book, The In-Between. And this one, 10 years later, uh, after meeting thousands, after traveling the world from Australia to Canada, from Europe to Africa, West Africa, North Africa, I've traveled a lot of places to advocate the Oromo people, to be the voice for Oromo people. But I also came with a very interesting conversation I feel like we're gonna have that I change. So, and before I get to the change, I will just answer your question, like what differentiates the Oromos? What is different? Obviously, Alpha, I think what differentiate you and I, we look like, I mean, like if you and I was to sit down together, nobody will tell who is who. Like, oh, two Black people. And then the moment we speak, it's like, oh, you guys have an accent where you're from, you know what I'm saying? And if you happen to speak to my people, they might tell exactly who is who. But at the end of the day, is identity is socially constructed, and what defines Oromo, what differentiates Oromo from other group is used to be three things like anybody else. It used to be religion, used to be language, and it used to be culture, because we are all Black, so nothing really differentiates us. It is these three things that define you and I and me from other Ethiopians. But now, in a modern time, as we know, religion have become universal, especially with the coming of Abrahamic religion. That is the main true religion. I'm leaving, Judaism apart because it's such a small, and Judaism have become such ethno religion too. There's a certain group that claims it. But the two religion, Christianity and Islam, you and I can share the same religion if you're a Christian both, you know what I'm saying? So that really no longer define or differentiate a person. So what defines me or differentiate me and Oromo from other non-Oromos in Ethiopia or elsewhere came down to two things, the language and the culture. So, like when I meet a person, from their name, I know exactly what ethnic they are, whether they are Oromo, especially as an Oromo, and because we give our kids our like the Oromo name. Nobody else usually does that. And you can't say 100%, but at least for the majority part, nobody else does give their kids. But also the way we dress, our culture, like the language we speak, I mentioned to you. I put on the table, I have something that, the way we dress, the way we practice. And in fact, for the case of Oromo, before Abrahamic religion, stepped foot in Oromia or Ethiopia, my people, which I practice right now, we practice indigenous religion. So I think that is what differentiate Oromos from any other ethnic group. Everybody is proud of their ethnic group. Everybody in Ethiopia is, ethnic based, federalism. Unlike other countries, most, if not in the world, I believe about two or three countries have ethnic based federalism, but the rest of the world have just geographic based, like the US one, where it's like, state here, state there, but it's not based on like Hispanic here, Blacks there, Asian here. But in Oromo, you have the Oromia region, the Amhara region, Tigray region, Somali region, so on and so forth. So I think that's what defines us. And
You mentioned religious, indigenous religion. Can you tell us a little bit about that faith, your indigenous religion that brought particularity to the Oromos?
absolutely. And I honestly believe personally, I did not do a good research, but I personally believe the Oromo indigenous religion, what is one of the most unique, not because it's in Ethiopia, but it goes far deeper than that. A lot of things that when you dig into the Oromo religion, the indigenous religion, it connects back to a lot of even how Christianity, because if you look at Islam, the book of Islam or the Quran, I would say pretty good, 90+% is just as similar to what's in the Bible. Like literally, it's just a change. And Islam came about 1500 years ago. So Christianity about 2000 years ago. If you look at it, we've been around for millions of years. So imagine a religion that came just about 2000 years ago, yet have overtaken the whole world. Today, half of the world is follow this faith. So to put it in context, Alpha, just imagine this. We've been around for millions of years, yet this two religion came 2000, like how short of time it is. This is a couple generation, yet they have taken over half of the world population. They have, it must well, colonized systematically the minds of the world. It's not bad or good. The bottom line, if people have adapted and accepted and internalized that and begin to practice that. And there are some people who would even try to go beyond, oh, like this religion have always existed, but there is no evidence of that existing. So indigenous religion, which I am proudly practice and talk about it, is the name of that religion is called Waaqeffannaa. And a lot of foundation that you see in the Christianity, again, I mentioned Christianity because it's older than Islam, is a lot of similarity. But interestingly, when Christianity came to Ethiopia and Oromia, one of the first thing they did is dismantle the foundation of this Waaqeffannaa religion. So they went to the temples, the foundation of this religion, and they built churches in those sites, in those high key area. They built churches, and they went after the priest, and that's the very first thing they did. So if you look at, to me, religion is that when they came for the spirits of my people, and then they eliminated, disconnected. The way I see Alpha is this: religion is spirituality. It is what connects us to our roots, be in the past, our great grandparents, people who brought us here. We didn't fall from the sky. We are descent of some people. So it connects us to that root, but also it connects us to our creator. But when you cut that line, the connection, a person from its root, people who died for us, and then from our creator, whom we get so much power from, we become a people lost. And in fact, that's why I think Black people in general, to me, in a way, whether you can be any African or even, some Americans, some other different countries, that what you see, there's so much struggle for the Black people. I don't know any country where Black people are thriving more than the white people. And I'm not in any way anti-white or anti-Arab by any means, but in every country you see, my brother, you see the darker you are, the more you're gonna suffer. So like if I'm not religion, I'm kind of mixing in a lot of different things. It is for me so fundamental, so important that young people need to really understand what did our people used to do, whatever country you're from, before 2000 years Christianity came or even existed. Our people existed. So what were they practicing? So that's what Waaqeffannaa is, and it's monotheistic religion in a way, because they say there's only one God, but that God is defined as being Black. And you see on the cover of my book, it's Black on top, red in the middle, white in the back and the bottom. And my book is really not next to me, so I couldn't show you. But the white represents the ashes, the past. The blood is just human. And the Black represent the unknown, the God. In Oromo culture, we say God is Black because Black is the unknown. It's like you go to the room, you walk in, if the light was on, you know exactly where the seat is, you know exactly where the coffee, like there's nothing to look at, it's obvious. But if you go in a pitch black room, what do you see? You see nothing. It's the unknown. That's why everything in Oromo culture is defined. The highest color is the Black color. The highest beauty is also defined by beauty. I remember my grandma who died just about 5-6 years ago. Like when they define like a beautiful, like look at that Black beautiful woman. So that is how it is defined. So it's indigenous religion, and I suspect in every community, before Christianity and Islam came to an existence and colonized our mind, that our people practice it. And something that was unique to them, something that is, because my grandma told me in her lifetime, because my grandma just died recently. My grandma told me in her lifetime, the way they connected with their God, it wasn't like through you pray every day, go to church every day, none like that. They have actually direct access to their God. They go to once twice a year, but once in a winter, like spring, at the end of rainy season, they go to the lake, and then that's where they connect to God. Like thank you, God. They call it Waka, because as you know, rainy season is in Africa. It's a very treacherous season. You get disconnected from family. The lake's too swollen, so that they call it the dark winter. So it's dark winter is here. Spring is here. Everything is blooming. The babies are being born, or like a lot of things, a lot of good things, a lot of beautiful things. So they go over there to give thanks, to pray to it. Let's say, for example, there was a dry season and there was no rain. My grandma told me, like, they just go to the mountain, and especially the woman, they will be there for days if it's necessary, but they do not leave until the rain comes. So to me, it's like, wow, like people actually going to the mountain, whatever be, there might be a river, Alpha, that they stay there until the rain come, and she say, we've never been disappointed. And this have been generation after generation. But now, after she got old, she was converted, and she was like, yeah, they convert us. They told us that is a backward, and my husband, after she got married, is when she converted. Her daughter, who's my mom, think that religion is somehow backward. Like we shouldn't even talk about it. It's like it's the bad thing. But for thousands, millions of years, our people practiced that, and that this new religion have made us to look at ourselves, to look our culture, our faith, as if we're not educated. Like that is really what breaks my heart. Is like that they wash their brain to the point that they're like, oh, don't look back. And when I proudly tell them that religion, my family get embarrassed. They're like, but you're so beautiful. Why do you want to be that? Because I want to reconnect to my people. I want to I want to experience that. I want to be reconnected to my God, the God of my people, my creator, whatever that might be. But anyway, I think I talk a little bit way more.
I see. Um, as you indicated in your book that I have the chance to have here, you indicated the black represent the unknown, the red is the blood of the ancestors, if I'm not mistaken. What the white is about.
So the white is the past, the ashes. When the wood is burned,
Mm,
what is left behind is the
yeah.
ash. And
Mm,
what's the color of ash? It's white.
I
What I'm
see.
saying? Like the color of the so it represents the past.
I see. As you also indicated, you wrote a book calling it Life Between. And recently you wrote another book called Na-Malee. Why you see the need of writing another book related to the Oromo, and what is the meaning of the title Na-Malee?
Very good. I think that's very lots of question that I think I can answer. So the first book is, like you mentioned, is like the in between 10, 11 years ago. 2014 is when I wrote. And this one is Na-Malee. Na-Malee is the subtitle is, if I'm not mistaken, Dogma's grip in Oromo and Ethiopian politics.
Yeah,
Dogma is something that grips you, it's like stuck, like I'm right, he's wrong. Him versus, like, like them versus us. It's never like we go together, but it's like, hey, for us to gain, they must lose. If they gain, that means we must have lost. I'm saying? There's no collectiveness that I observe. So the Na-Malee book, the reason I wrote is it's pretty big book, 450 plus 50 page, single space, and it's the experience of 4 years. And during that experience, I had a chance to traveled to Australia to meet member of parliament. I've traveled to Canada. I've traveled to many different parts of Europe, met with many different people, member of parliament. I had a chance to meet with the presidential advisor here, both for Trump as well during his first term. as well as President Biden. I met with their advisors. We met them as well, say, and state departments and Congress and at the AU level, at the IGAD, East African community level, at the East African presidential, staffers within who were sitting on chair for certain key offices and at the AU Human Rights Commission level. So we have done a lot of work educating these people about the Oromos. Um, See, I mentioned earlier, Alpha, is that so when I started the Oromo struggle, I come from a community that have been so marginalized that even though Oromos as big as I told you, it was a shame to be Oromo when I was growing up. Even the Oromos didn't want to be Oromo. And even those people who spoke Oromo language in Ethiopia, they have to bury their head. They have to whisper it because they don't want to be caught. They don't want to be seen, that language. It means that you're Oromo because nobody speaks that language. And if you speak Oromo, it's like, oh, who is that country person? Like, it's beyond country person. It was, I think, systematically, the state of Ethiopia, when it's created, had made the way you're going to create the state is to really dismantle the indigenous people, whether that is Native American in America or in a lot of different places. And systematically, through religion and politically, they have marginalized Oromos and mentally only colonized the Oromos to the point that even the Oromos were ashamed of being Oromo. Right now, it's pretty cool to be Oromo. But back then, when I used to struggle for, nobody wanted to be an Oromo Alpha. So, um, when I travel to these places, I've always tried to uplift their voice. I was madly addicted to the Oromo cause because I wanted to, I was so mad that the people as big as Oromo, as large as Oromo, are yet ashamed to be an Oromo. How is that possible? It's like me being a woman that I try to be a man. It's like why would I want to be ashamed of being a woman? I want to create a world where they appreciate women just as much as they appreciate men. So that was my struggle for major part of my life, actually, for 21 plus years. I have really been dedicating my life since I graduated high school. I got into the Oromo struggle. But also the last 3 years, Alpha, I came to conclusion, something that I learned far greater is big part of Oromo struggle, though it's external, is big part is an internal. It's the internal, not only division, but self-sabotaging. The Oromo could not, would not, should never have been oppressed, marginalized, and mentally colonized by anybody. They're just too big to be such. So the way the enemy did it is obviously, and something that came around is they divide and conquer. They got some Oromos to convince them, brainwash them, and then they use those Oromos to do whatever they did, whether it is marginalization, oppression, as some people want to claim it to be colonization, they use the Oromo, but that does not just apply to Oromos. It applies to almost any ethnic group. If you go any African countries, there's a lot of African countries where the minorities are in power, are abusing the majorities. It can be my people, it can be anybody. And a lot of time happens is the minority we use, with the obviously help of a lot of African countries have been colonized by Western countries. And when the Western country left the power, a lot of time they gave the power to the minority group they favored. And that minority group perpetuated violence against the majority because they want to keep the country stable. To keep the stable is you gotta somehow control the majority. So this book, a big 30% of the book is about that struggle. Another 30% of it about self-sabotaging that I saw within Oromo. Because I used to think the enemy of the Oromo were just outside, like, the others. But now I realize, and I show in the book, that are actually our biggest enemy. And you probably seen on the back of the cover, if we can dare to be honest to ourselves, our biggest enemy is within, not from the outside. And the third of the book is about recommendation for the younger generation, because I believe there's a lot of things I wish I knew when I was in my 20s, that I could have made a difference even in my teens. So I want the young people, young generation to read, to kind of make their own assessment, because every generation should have their own struggle, their own movement that they're gonna work on to make a difference. Climate change was a movement. Right now, the Palestine issue, the Gaza Palestine issue is a very important for young people. They very much emerge and want to make a difference. As for the Oromos, I think it's time that the Oromos assess on both sides, where did we go wrong and how do we fix it, rather than being stuck the movement that was created about half a century ago.
I see. Basically, if I have an understanding of what you're saying is a journey. This book reflects your journey through your early struggling to advocate the cause, and how you realize that the issue can be also internal issue, and further you giving advice to the next generation so they can not repeat certain mistake you may consider as a mistake. However, I want to come back to the question: what is Na-Malee? Why you choose that title?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, you did
It's
ask, and
okay. Mhm.
I forgot about it, Alpha. So Namani is an Oromo word, originally comes from the word numale. So nu is plural, na is a singular. There's nothing different. So inside the book, you've seen that I usually used all numale. It's only in the cover is namale. So the word means such a loaded word. It means my way or the highway. It means the people who is like, I'm right, everybody's wrong. And that is the dogmas of Africa, not just even Oromo or Ethiopia, that were, like, I'm right, and if I'm not in charge, I'm gonna destroy. You know what I'm saying? That's because of my advocacy, I work with a lot of male-dominated political aspect, and I saw them. I looked this way and I looked that way. Like there's a lot of self-sabotaging. I think Alpha, as you know, Ethiopia is going through civil war for the last 5 years. There have been millions of people have died, and every ethnic group feels, they should rule the country. They are right and the others are wrong. So it's a zero-sum game. It's my way or the highway. That's what the title translates into.
I see. So let's go inside the book. Based on the book, you have 18 chapters. And if you look for the first chapter, you talk about the history of Ethiopia and Oromo. Can you give us a little briefing on the history of Ethiopia and the Oromo?
Well, I'm glad you actually remind me something. Yeah, it's supposed to be a brief, very, very brief, because and I add that chapter for people like you, as Alpha, because you don't know what Oromo. A lot of people, non-Oromo Ethiopians knows, but non-Ethiopians don't know who Oromo are. People know Ethiopia, nobody knows Oromo. So I wanted to it would be difficult to understand Oromo, forget about their struggle, even to understand who the Oromos are without really touching base, their relationship to the state. Ethiopia is obviously state as a country. Oromos are ethnic group, nations or ethnic group. Um, so I think in there it's like briefly, honestly, because it's unimaginable to say that I wrote a history of Ethiopia, because it's going to be endless volume. It's just very, very deep country. As you know, Ethiopia is one of the very few countries that have not been colonized.
Mm.
Ethiopia is unique in so many ways. And their struggle is also unique. I mean, I don't know any other African country that is for the last 35 years have been governed by ethnic federalism. And Ethiopia is the second largest population in the continent, next to Nigeria. And Ethiopia have a unique relationship to Africa as well as the West. And Ethiopia is also when Muhammad people left or chased out, and maybe even the Muhammad prophet himself came to Ethiopia, and that's where they sought refugee. And Christianity, if you know, also is found its root, the beginning, the 4th century, is in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is significant both in the Bible and the Quran. So Ethiopia is such a big place or important or significant place historically for many reasons. So in this chapter, I briefly talk about the relationship between the Oromo as a people and then Ethiopia, the state, as well as also some institution, for example, Orthodox Church. In early foundation of Ethiopia, Orthodox Church, and still Orthodox Church plays a significant role in the shaping. The government, the church used one each other. So to perpetuate to create the state because the church educated these people to say that the monarch, the government was ascended from God. He was chosen to lead. So you, because of your faith, don't have the right to rebel against it. Why? Because it comes from the God. Menelik, Haile Selassie, all of them, they all, ascend from King Solomon, Queen Sheba. Like that is very sensitive because imagine if you believe in the Bible, how are you gonna rebel against somebody who are a descent of King Solomon and King Sheba, who are very influential people. So Oromos, as a second, as the unfavored child of this, they were portrayed in some part as a foreigner, in some part as a subhuman, in some part as a, just basically in a lesser capacity than so-called other ethnic group that is, I guess, because there is oppression within the other group too, but at least when you look at outside of the context, like there is a human rights abuse again, or for example, the Irish in America were looked down back in the early days of finding America, but these are the same color people. So that did exist within white people, but the division between the white and the black is a different level of hate, a different level of oppression, marginalization. So the same thing there is, I'm sure there is a problem within certain group, but the difference, the way Oromo was portrayed in the church, and which I write about in the book, by the church teaching was very, it's just like as if Oromo was different race, not even like black. I don't know how they saw themselves, or maybe I think they saw the church saw itself as a partially Caucasian, whereas Oromos are the blacks, the dark-skinned one. That's how they were portrayed. So in this chapter, I talk about, obviously it's very deep, but I touch briefly to kind of give a synapse of what the relationship between between the Oromo and the so-called Ethiopia.
Basically, what you are saying, despite the Oromo being majority of the population, they were marginalized by the establishment and the religious institution. Is it the case?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So the establishment used religion
Mm,
to brainwash the mass, instead of rising against oppression, they took it as like, oh, this is divine intervention. We
mm,
must, bow down to it. We cannot ask it. And in return, the elites, the group for the church, they they divided the wealth of the country in three places. One third is for the divine, the government or the monarch. One third was given to the church, and one third was given to the military that is perpetuating this violence. So that's how they divided the wealth. So the church owns so much land, so much wealth, and now it's like there's obviously right now there's competition between Islam and Christianity, trying to convert people into that faith. And there's huge money going on that Saudi invests to convert people.
I see. In your chapter second, you talk about Oromo Legacy Leadership and Advocacy Association. Um, can you enlighten us a little bit about that chapter?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier a little bit, Alpha is I've traveled the world, and I am still executive director to More Legacy Leadership and Advocacy. the short name is OLLA. I'm the executive director to OLLA. So when I spoke on behalf of Oromo communities, Oromo people in general, I was, as in my capacity as OLLA. So that chapter is, we talk about our experience with what it felt like working with the UN, working with the AU, working with the State Department, working with the Congress, working with the Member of Parliament. So that's what that chapter covered.
Mm. And in some time in chapter 3, you talk about the journey in Romania. What can you describe the journey?
Yeah. At the beginning, to be exact, January 2020, when I last went to Ethiopia, I joined a political party. I joined several political parties, but what they were doing, they were going to a tour called Thank You Tour, where maybe, I don't know, a couple of 100,000 people will show up. I mean, a sea of people. Maybe, I don't know, but I've never seen anything like that, Alpha. So for the Romos, they know that. So it was such an interesting experience where people that large of a crowd will come out, the whole city is swarmed. There's no single police enforcing anything. Yet, my friend Jawar, who joined the political party, and the political party leaders from those political party, Oromo, for example, OFC, Oromo Federalist Congress, who are running, for a seat in Ethiopian Parliament. I mean, the way people welcome them, like it was a very moving experience. So that's what I talk about.
Okay. You mentioned about also a singer who was killed and how that thing impacted the Oromo movement. And if I'm not mistaken, his name is Hachalu.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So his name is pronounced in Oromo as Hachalu.
Chalu, okay.
Yeah, when he died, let me just put it this way.
Can you just first tell us about him? Who was it before he was killed and why you think they killed him?
Yeah, he was killed at the age of 34. He's a prominence at the top of the list of Oromo singers. He have a
Mm,
large, popular musician whose song is both about love, but mainly about the struggle. That's what made him so unique. And I'm a friend with him. I know him when he didn't have no money.
mhm,
I think it was 2012. He came to America. He didn't even have money to print his CD, so we have to print it for him. I printed myself a banner and sold the CD, like, back in the day, if you remember, you sell CD to people to get
mm,
money from him. He was in and out of prison for simply being Oromo, simply speaking or writing or singing about Oromo struggle. So when he died, and to kind of understand his level of among the community, his influence in the community. When he died, the whole country was shut down. For 23 days, there was a mass movement. I mean, imagine a country of 120, 130 million to shut down the internet, everything. That tells you how significant he is. I mean, they lost billions of dollars by the time they opened back. And according to opposition, over 100,000 people died during that 3 weeks, 4 weeks time. I mean, so his death was the turning point for the current prime minister, because the current prime minister was very popular. It's because of our movement he came to power, and he came to power in 2018, and he got Nobel Peace Prize in 2019, in
mm,
December
mm,
2019, and Hachalu was killed the very next year in May of 2020. So
mm.
it's about 5 months later he was killed. The guy received Nobel Peace Prize. 5 months later, he became a killer. Just so slaughtered people everywhere. I mean, unimaginable way. People were burned alive. People were it was very sad. I mean, the police were just shooting live ammunition, and there was just no care for human rights. So I think Hachalu's killing or assassination or whatever it is, because still we don't know how or who killed him. That was a turning point for the current prime minister from Nobel Peace Prize to the killer that he is right now.
Let's see. You also mentioned a fundraising fiasco. Is related to what? Mm.
So, in 2020, I mean, I think maybe we'll do a couple of different episodes and we'll talk about this because it's big. In 2020, we hired a lobbyist.
Is it part of the self-sabotage, you think, topic?
Yes.
I see.
Yes, it is kind
Okay.
of a little bit. So, like, if you remember, there was a COVID in 2020. People
Mm.
don't together, and yet we were able to travel. I was able to travel to the cities, different cities, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And people who were giving this money was taxi driver, people who were getting fund from the government, like they're, whatever saving they have, because they were so angry in this government. And we hired the lobbyists. We were paying like $30,000 a month. So you do the math. You pay $30,000, 3 months you pay them $100,000. There was a struggle that I faced personally. So that is part of the self-sabotaging personal struggle.
I see. And for the, you talk about the Tigray conflict. How the Tigray conflict affect the Oromo?
Yeah, so in May, Hachalu was killed, at the end of May, and everything went bananas. And we have member of Congress standing with us. Everything was good. The people were being mobilized. The world is paying attention to Oromo. And then November 4th, the Tigray conflict started. As if the switch was just turned off, like the whole world shifted to Tigray because the prime minister is an Oromo, and it's just easy to brand him as anti-Tigray, whereas like he's Oromo. He just came to Oromo, to power like a year ago. How you gonna accuse him of being anti-Oromo? But when it comes to Tigray, and then you have to understand, before the current prime minister Oromo came to power, the power of Ethiopia was at the hand of Tigrayan elites. They controlled the mass. And in fact, people like me came to this country because of the oppression, the human rights abuse. The Tigrayan elites who were in power committed. But I wanted to emphasize it wasn't just the Tigrayan. They did it in coalition of other people, including, the Oromos and the Amharas and other people. But again, they were at the top of the chain. So when you point finger, you point the finger to the top of the chain, just like right now. There's not just Oromo who's in power. There are other people, the Somalis in power, but you always point finger on the top. And the Tigray conflict was, for me, it was, it honestly was triggering moment to realize that, because I grew up in Oromo struggle. I thought Oromos are the good people, the innocent people, whereas the other people, the Tigrayans or the Amharas, were the bad people. But then I realized that we are just as savage as anybody else.
When we come to Ethiopia, I feel like my impression is there is a lot of ethnic tensions. So what is the problem, the deep problem on the issue? Why the state or the empire were not able to create a nation?
Right, right. I think that's exactly what it is, Alpha. Honestly, why did Ethiopia did not become a state? Because, like you say, right now, like Ethiopia is tearing itself. I mean, in every part of the country, outside of the capital, Ethiopia is such a huge country. Its name, like it's just so big. AU sits right there. Um, you would think by now they have their shit together, excuse my language, Alpha. But yet we became barbaric. I cannot tell you, it's a shame to admit. We became so barbaric. And unlike, next door, Kenya. Kenya's about what, if I'm not mistaken, 37 million, about 40 or 50 million people. Yet Ethiopia is 3 times Kenya. Kenya, relatively a country. Sudan, even Sudan is relatively a country. Even South Sudan that came to existence about 10, 12 years ago in 2011 is relatively better than Ethiopia right now. Ethiopia is tearing itself within based on this. It's a combination of a lot of things, Alpha. And I definitely came to believe, because I used to think federalism is a solution. But now, over the last 3 years, and you probably seen in the book, I talk about there's a possibility federalism might be also a problem. But I do think it should not be a Oromo problem, because there are certain ethnic groups that demand that the current federalism is a source of the evil that need to be dismantled. They're willing to die for it. They're not going to be satisfied until you remove that federalism. But there are certain group of people who feel like that federalism, including the Oromos, must be there. If not, federalism is not there, the ethnic federalism, that we're gonna have to dismantle this country. So Ethiopia is a war within itself, and because it has not got to the level of state formation, and in a way, because they're not colonized, they're just difficult people. We are difficult people.
If I understand you, the facts indicated that the Oromo people have been subjected to human rights violations since the beginning of the creation of Ethiopia. And despite the fact now we have a prime minister who is from the Oromo, those human rights violations are still going on. You, as an activist of standing and advocating for the Oromo people, what is the solution? What are the solution you have on you that you can share to improve the situation of the Oromo nation inside the nation of Ethiopia?
For the sake of time, I'll make my recommendation Alpha a little bit shorter, and I'll tell you the struggle of the Oromo people is the struggle of the Ethiopia people. Oromo being at the center of Ethiopia geographically and being the majority population-wise makes Oromo the heart and the organ of Ethiopia. There is no Oromo, there is no Ethiopia. Interestingly, the elite that wanted to downlook on Oromos, it's so mind-boggling to how could Ethiopia ever exist without Oromo? I mean, geographically, we are account to the center, and a big part of the land, numerically in terms of number-wise, we account to them as, so how could Ethiopia ever exist? And just to me, it's mind-boggling that the elites wanted to pretend like the Oromos are not indigenous to Ethiopia, because that's what that was the kind of statement that was, I guess, not statement, kind of the history that Oromos are foreign to Ethiopia. Interestingly to me is Alpha is that even some Oromos, I'm talking about elite, I'm not talking about the layman, have accepted that notion, raised like the likes of me, that to fight against the system, as if the system was not created by some of our people. And I think, in my opinion, the way forward for Oromo, for Ethiopia, as you probably know, Alpha, the horn is on fire. Take Ethiopia, take Sudan, take South Sudan, take Eritrea, take Ethiopia. I mean, Somalia. Somalia is failed state. South Sudan is a failed state. I mean, they exist, but it's just they have not had election ever since they got created. It's just a fake. Sudan, we all know what's going on. It's actively fighting. Eritrea, everybody know the North Korea of Africa. So if you took at the horn is combination of these people. Relatively, the only country from all the 7 countries that's there, only Kenya is relatively stable, but Kenya is also teetering on the edge of conflict. We know what happened last year. There was a mass movement and people got killed, and they have election, if I'm not mistaken, either next year or the following year they have election. So everybody's nervous that election might be the least of it. And that is if I'm not mistaken, the current president is the first non-majority group who is elected to power. So the whole horn is on fire. The way I'm seeing is that really there is all the politics of 1950s and 1960s, decolonization. Because if you see Africa in 1900, Africa was colonized, and the West kind of randomly, took this area and called it Kenya, took that area called Somalia, without really accounting who lives here, who lives over there. Because you have ethnic group, the same ethnic group, Oromos live in Kenya, Somalia, as well as Ethiopia. Somalis live in Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya. So there is that division where the certain ethnic group are fighting to reunite and come up with the greater country. That struggle is there. And African Union also have become a club of elites. They don't really speak for the people. They're almost an entity that get funded by foreign countries, by the West in particular, and they are there just to put the rubber stamp. They don't really speak truly, and they can't because they don't have sufficient funding. And the African rulers, ruling parties or government, they all have a bad blood in their hand, corruption. They don't want to point finger at each other. When Ethiopian Prime Minister was doing all this heinous crime, no African country stood up saying, this is wrong, Ethiopia need to stop this. No, they just looked the other way and let him continue what he was doing. And that seemed to be the case in all of African countries. So I think Africa, honestly, and a lot of us, you're an activist yourself, and a lot of people here in diaspora, we came as a refugee mostly for political purpose. We are against the government. But I think we need a soul-searching conversation. How do we get out of here? And how do we self-sabotage? For me, I told you, I came to the conclusion that even though Oromos are majority, we cried for generations that we were colonized, oppressed, marginalized, whatever you want to call it, by other group, but we have a big hand in it. So I think every ethnic group that need to understand that whatever is happening to us, we have a big role that we played. How do we play it? We have to be honest to ourselves.
I see. You indicated often through your experience, you see self-sabotage. Self-sabotage, is it in the nation level in Ethiopia or even in the diaspora?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a topic that I think I would love for us to discuss also in person, Alpha, honestly, because it applies to everybody. It applies to everybody. Just like when I wrote the first book, The In Between, Oromo is not the only people in between America and Africa or whatever country you might be from. Many diaspora people, we are in between. We live here, we live there. We're physically here, mentally advocating for those people over there. And we don't even, understand sometimes. So the self-sabotaging I saw apply specifically Oromo because I was very embedded in Oromo. I was working with the elites, with the community leaders, with the political leaders, with the youth, with the women. So I was working with an international level, obviously, and also within Ethiopian different group. So what I realized, for example, I'll give you an example. When we used to work with the State Department, I used to go to the meeting representing the Oromos. You have somebody representing the Amharas, another person representing the Afar, other ethnic groups. So everybody's like, okay, my ethnic group, this happened, blah, blah, nobody care about us. And then we go to like, oh, my ethnic group is marginalized, nobody care about us. Like, so I realized for me, it's like, we all like, it's just like, wow. It's just like, we come here. I mean, we don't even hear ourselves. So I kind of realized that, wow, that is in a country level that I realized like, we are the enemy. In a Romo level, I saw the division. I saw, I did like I call it 360. Some people say it's 180 difference. I say, the same, like I'm three different 360 change. I realize that the enemy is within ourselves.
I see. I will basically do the time ask my last question. You trying in your book to reach out to the next generation. What was the values you share in your book when you come to the next generation? What should they learn from mistakes and how they can improve the situation of your people?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, Alpha, the future belongs to the next generation.
Mm.
We just have to do our part to make it better and move on because we're gonna die soon. And there, it's the next generation in the future is theirs to do as they see fit. What we can do for them is give them the information, give them the knowledge, give them what we know. That way they can make a better decision. I mentioned to you at the beginning, I wish I know what I know now about 10, 20 years ago. I would have acted different. And over the last 5 years, I had a chance to work with the people. Like, for example, I had a chance to work kids from Harvard University, Princeton University, people from Yale University, Georgetown University. I mean, these are brilliant young teenager in early 20s who are just coming to this Oromo struggle. They are very passionate. They want to make a difference. So what I realized is that, okay, we need to educate these young people. They're not going to be just part of the problem, but they're going to see like, okay, there's a problem here, problem there. We're not the only one feeling this way. Because I grew up in Oromo echo chamber. Like I only heard about the Oromo stuff. I never heard the struggle of other Ethiopians. I want to expose them to the struggle of other Ethiopians. That way they're going to come up with a unique solution. Okay, whether you are Oromo or Amhara or Tigray, at the end of the day, we are all obviously suffering. So how do we overcome? Rather than zero-sum game, let's get rid of this person because he's from, I don't know, Tigray or he's Amhara or whatever ethnic group he is. So I wanted to leave the young generation with the challenge within Oromo, within Ethiopia, that their future, they should be more inclusive. We have much more in common. We have a lot, we can go further. America is great because they have so much land. What we need to do is correlate other people, correlate, I don't know, build a coalition or some kind of confederation with our own neighbors that are so much close to us. We as a human, if we live in America with the Asians, with the Blacks, with the Native Americans, and we have no problem, why do we have a problem in Ethiopia, in Africa, when our, such a small place, when we have much in common, when we are blood-wise much related, why do we have so common and we feel like we are so different? So my hope is for the next generation is that really to see all the shortfalls we have rather than looking at us versus them. The problem is here. Let's address the problem, not trying to find the enemy that don't exist. That's how I grew up. I was taught to see everybody else, honestly, not everybody else, but a lot of people as the enemy. And I think that teaching have affected me. What I left in my book is the next generation. Because I had a chance to sit down, and you read in the book, I have a chance to sit down with these young people to talk about it. And I've also seen how they debate, how they see, because I was once them, and I want to avoid the mistake that I made. I want to help them avoid that.
Yeah, I agree with your views. I feel like the solution is to unite and overlook the ethnic differences and trying to build a strong nation. And the only way you can do it basically is to unite. Miss Sena, thank you very much for taking your time and sharing about your book called Na-Malee. It was a great experience. I did have the chance to learn a lot about your people. But before we end the conversation, I will give you the last word.
No, thank you again. I hope I'll come back to your show and we'll talk some more. My hope is that maybe we'll pick just a topic and dive into it deeper. That is more meaningful for people, I feel like, rather than just general summary. Um, and I want to thank you again for the work you do, Alpha, and for your people, the activism that you're engaged in. It's not easy. We activists know how hard it is to take an hour of your time, bring people together, and we are difficult people. We want to, I want us, for our listener, to see or think about it. You know how busy you are to, like, and you are enjoying this show, you are learning something from this show, so you should ask yourself, how can I support this show? How can I encourage this person? And what can I add the value? Because you appreciate that is out there. You appreciate the knowledge you're getting. You appreciate, there's somebody's putting a content together for you to get this education. So your job is like, what can I add to the path rather than just take. One thing I see from our community, Alpha, a lot of not just Oromos, a lot of African community, we are a community of takers. We just love to take. We don't have a culture of give, put it back.
Supporting.
Like, yes, reciprocatory. I'm pretty sure I'm murdering the name, the word. Um, I'll call on our viewers and your viewers, and I'm obviously so thrilled to be here. I hope to come back and we'll talk another day, and I will dive into deeper conversation. The Oromo struggle is the struggle of Africa in many ways. Is what I mean is that it's not because Oromos all in every part of Africa, but our issue is so similar, and I think it is time that we look into for different solution to different angle. We could, madness is to do the same thing over and over, expect different result. We cannot do that. So we must approach our problem from different angle. We must look into how are other people are succeeding. To me, religion is the most powerful weapon against our people. But you can't even talk about it because you get accused of so many things. But anyway, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. I will definitely find another time to invite you so you can talk about your first book and your views in general when you come to politics, religion, and other issues that may interest this platform. Again, thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree. It was a pleasure talking to you about your book.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.